Welcome back to the Female Dating Strategy, the meanest female-only podcast on the internet. I am your host, Diana.
And I am your host, Rose. And today, before we get into our topic for discussion, Diana, I was mentioning this in our pre-talk, how Savannah, our very own Savannah from FDS, was recently featured on another podcast called The Audacity, which features three amazing women. And apparently this episode came out just the other day, I want to say March 24th. So just last week, it's featuring Savannah. Everybody should go check it out because I know Savannah's on bonus content, but can't we all use more Savannah in our lives? So I want to encourage our listeners to go check that episode out. But in today, this is something that I feel is sort of a continuation of what our last week's episode, which was about strategies of winning, knowing when to quit. And I would argue that more strategies of winning include knowing when to rest, knowing when to take a break, knowing when to call it intermission, and just taking a time out. I think this is something that women really tend to struggle with. So let's get into it.
Well, yeah, I think when you live in a very capitalistic society, you're just guilt-tripped into working nonstop. I used to be the kind of person who would take, honestly, I hate to say it, but I'm still like that. I take my laptops with me on holidays. I'm always trying to get work done when I'm on vacation. I haven't been on a proper vacation in many, many, many years. And it's my fault. I take full accountability for it because it's just so wired into me. Also, it's very difficult when you have a remote job because the boundaries are blurred. It's you have to set your own schedule. So it's okay, when exactly do I set time to rest? Because technically I'm supposed to be building my own clock. And so if you're the kind of person who's I don't know what to do with absolutely an endless amount of time, and your immediate solution isn't to be let's do nothing and instead fill it up with stuff to do that's work related, this might be for you. Because I definitely feel I struggle with that too, where it's very hard for me to be goof around. There's a lot of guilt associated with goofing around. You feel you should be doing at least one thing that's of some productive value.
Doesn't it feel if somebody calls you lazy, doesn't it feel like a moral insult?
Yeah.
You're deeply insulted. How dare you? And I think that bears looking into. It's just a simple descriptor and it might not even be accurate, but everybody knows if you call somebody lazy, that's an ultimate slur against their character.
It's one of the deadly sins for a reason, right? I've run myself ragged to prove to people that I'm not lazy, and then I just wound up burnt out instead.
Yeah, actually, my father loved to use lazy and selfish. Those were his two favorite go-to insults for me because they're very effective. And it impressed upon my very soul the fact that these were the two worst things you could be as a lady. Because he was always talking about, being ladylike and being a lady. Now that I'm older, I'm fuck being a lady. How about I just be a human being? Okay. But these were very effective, not carrots, because it was really the whip, right? He was cracking the whip when he would use these slurs to me. And I find it highly ironic because I started working in the farms and then in the fields when I was 8 years old, Diana. I started paying taxes when I was 8. Okay. And this continued. It wasn't I did it once and then I waited until I was 16. I worked every summer from the time I was 8 growing up. And to talk about the fact that I was such an overachiever with academics and this and that, because I knew my only ticket out of town was going to be either talent, piano in this case, and or academics. And it was the free ride I got from those that started my path to liberation, right? But having to work at such a young age, and I would have to buy my own clothes. If I wanted a backpack, I had to buy that. If I wanted candy, everything had to come from my own pocket. I mean, it's not they wouldn't buy me shoes or a winter coat, but actually I never did get a winter coat purchased for me because I was the youngest. And so everything was just handed down. Right. And it's not to say that I come from lack, but I really came from this background where it was even as a child, you had to prove your worth. You had to pull your weight. And I think a lot of women know how this is because that's what they do to us with childcare. Typically, if I had been the oldest, I would have been taking care of all 4 of us. But since I was the youngest, I had to prove my worth elsewhere. But I think so many women are brought up as the caregivers and the proxy parents to their younger siblings. So we learn from such a young age that we are not worthy simply breathing and existing and being ourselves. We're only worthy in service to XYZ, typically other people and most especially men.
And it puts you in a position of having to audition for people's approval. You're auditioning to be the best daughter, auditioning to be the best wife, best girlfriend, best friend. It's never ending, right? Because so much of it is about external validation. The thing about rest is no one is going to validate you for resting. Not even you.
Exactly.
Not even you, you know? And I think that's why it's valuable, right? Because the very thought of time, people say time is money, time is valuable, etc. So we're so used to taking our 24 hours and being like, what is every hour worth? Which is so funny because we never think about this in long-term jumps, right? We never think, oh, I wasted 10 years with a guy. Let's waste 10 more. You know what I mean? Nobody's ever thinking about it in the long-term spectrum of things because they're like, well, it's not really about the time. It's about like the relationship. But the truth is, it is about the time, right? Because then when you actually push people, they're like, well, I've been with him for so many years, like it's too late for me to start over. So yeah, it is about the time. It's not just about the person. I mean, the time is being used as an excuse for the person, but it is about the time. And so, like, what if we started valuing our own time a lot more just in general? Just recently, I had a work experience where I put a lot into it and I didn't really get paid that much out of it. Again, it was a learning experience for me. I'd never done something like that before. So when I look back at the overall experience, I was like, well, what were the pros and cons, right? The pros were like, I learned how to do this. I could do it on my own. I'm a lot more confident executing something like this. But the con was that it wasn't worth the work that I was putting in.
Right. It wasn't worth the time.
Yeah, it wasn't worth the time.
So the time and the work, right?
Yeah.
And this is something where like my friends all kind of joke about, like, I'm known for being a napper. And this is one way in which I've sort of like radically reclaimed my downtime, because it's like, although I love watching movies and like listening to music and, you know, going onto YouTube, I do all these things too. Like, I'm a member of society. I live in a society. But one of my favorite ways to pamper myself is to let myself have a nap. And every time I lay down to take a nap, I'm just like, oh my God, I love my life so much. Like, this is so amazing. First of all, naps are free, which is my favorite F word, even though I love to swear. But nothing makes me happier than something being free and something that's of worth. And I think, especially when we think about rest, like, we don't think about it in the long term, but like, I think a lot of the reasons why women have chronic autoimmune issues, chronic health concerns, I think a lot of it has to do with the long-term effects catching up of you never fucking resting enough and adequately.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And just continually, like, can I read you a little note that I got from one of my besties for my birthday this month?
Sure.
She gave me the best compliment of my life. She said, may this coming new year of your life be full of just the right amount of adventure with equal parts or more of repose and restoration. And I just love that she's like, I know you need your repose. Like, even even in my birthday letter, she's like, you've taught me so much just by how much you cherish and prioritize, not just adventure, which I do, like I'm an adventurous person, but like equal hand in glove is the fact that I allow myself to rest and restore after my adventures and in my day to day. And I think that's a really lovely and underheard compliment. Like, have you ever had a friend compliment you like that? I haven't.
No, I can't say I have. But you know what? A recent win for me rest wise, I was like traveling somewhere recently and I've had a lot of flight anxiety lately. I mean, I wasn't ever scared of taking flights because I used to fly a lot when I was a kid, but I started having a lot of flight anxiety. And I took like some medicine that a doctor prescribed for me ages ago. And it's supposed to help with anxiety in general. And like, I fell asleep within minutes of being on that flight. And like, when I say I was asleep, I mean like really asleep, mouth wide open, like a fly could have like just swooped right in, you know. And when I woke up, like my mouth was still open, and like there was this guy like staring at me because I was like, without, you know, just like the joy of, I haven't slept like that since I was a kid. You know what I mean? I haven't like slept on a flight, like, because I'm always so scared. Like if I feel any like turbulence or anything, I feel really anxious, right? And for the first time, I don't know if it was just like a smooth flight or whether the medicine was really like it's doing a number on me, but I just slept and I was so rested. When I got out of the airport, I felt so rested and I was like, wow, why don't I allow myself to do that? Because I spend so much time in my head worrying about things. And I realized I was like, this is like a larger metaphor for life, right? How much time do we spend worrying about things that we have no control over when we could just chill? When we could just chill instead, you know?
And we all know like how rare it is to step off a flight and out of the airport feeling rested. Like, that's the gold standard for like getting your best life.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very small thing, but it's just like I overcame this like anxiety that I face around flying so much that I've never really let myself, like, I didn't even realize it, but like even on really long haul flights, I didn't really let myself properly rest while I was on the flight because I was so nervous about what could go wrong, you know? And I had like this weird fear that like, if I didn't have my eye on the ball for like a minute, if I wasn't like perpetually paranoid about what might happen on the flight, like something bad would happen. So then, like, the whole flight, I'm just so anxious because all I'm thinking about is like, oh my God, how bad is this flight going to be?
That's the worst. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it's just like, it just keeps you in a position of stress the whole way through. So you feel wired by the time that you get out of the flight. You don't feel rested, you feel miserable. You know what? Learning and experiencing that has taught me a lot about just like relationships with men in general as well. Because I was like, if I had spent less time worrying about what could go wrong with men, right? And instead just be in a more restful energy of like, well, they may fuck up. That might happen. It's not in my control whether they fuck up or not. But I'll be able to move on if they do. Like having the confidence of being able to say, well, if they do something weird, I can move on. You know what I mean? The fact that I won't collapse from this is actually very essential to my well-being. I don't need to be in a position where I'm constantly worried about a person trying to screw me over, because I think there is a limit to how paranoid like you can be in your life. You know what I mean? Like a very paranoid sense of living is not what we're advocating for on this podcast. Like we advise caution, we advise vigilance, but paranoia is not a part of that strategy. And I think a lot of people listen to what we say and they think, oh, they're being paranoid. Not all men are bad this way. And we're like, we're not going after the whole world because we don't really have an interest in doing that. You know what I mean? Like, accept that there are people who are very flawed and we give people the guidelines needed to assess that. If you choose to like chase after people who are going to mess you over, like, I mean, there's nothing we can do about that.
Right. I call that radical acceptance. Like we accept that people are and that the world is as it will be. But like, as for me and mine, that's what I'm going to attend to, and like making sure that circle is safe and secure is the primary consideration. But after that, I just let it go, ladies. Like I'm not sitting here a nervous, bundled mess of stress day to day. Like I'm quite a joyful person, like people regularly comment to me on like how I'm just such a happy, cheerful person. And I'm like, well, it takes a lot of work. Like it's a lot of cultivation, but yeah, like I've created a life and a world that really makes me happy and enlivens me every day to wake up to, after I've had my sufficient rest and relaxation. So, what was also interesting about getting this letter from my friend, and we've been friends for like 15 years now, like we've done international travel together. We're super tight. What's interesting is that Diana, at first when I read that, like just the right amount of adventure with equal parts or more of repose and restoration, and then smiley face. I was like, is she like harassed? I'm like, is she trolling me for being lazy? Like at first had this knee-jerk reaction of like, oh, she's kind of like making fun of my laziness. And then I was like, Maria, no, like that's your paranoia. That was my paranoia popping up. And I like had to have a little walkthrough in my own mind about like, why is my mind going to that? Like that's her complimenting you. That's her affirming who you are and the choices you've made in your life. Like, don't take this the wrong way just because the world would have their own perception of like who you are. But again, like I think part of the reason I am so cheerful and happy is because I get my rest. I make sure I rest. And I'm not just talking about like I'm sitting on my couch, I'm watching a movie, like I'm reading a book, I'm listening to music. No, it's like I'm sitting in silence. I'm going for a walk with my dog with like no phone, just raw dogging it out in the world, because I think part of rest is actually really at heart getting back to being at home within yourself. And I think that's why people struggle with rest so much, Diana.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, like internalizing what people feel about you, regardless of whether it's true, right? Like, I mean, I have family members that tell me I'm lazy all the time, but I've achieved goals that many people in my 30s, like people around me, haven't achieved. Like, a lot of my friends know me to be extremely driven and very ambitious. And so when I tell them, oh, yeah, but my family thinks I'm really lazy, they just like are so confused by that, because they're just like, in what universe are you lazy, And it's like, well, it's almost not the point that I am lazy. The point is to insult me. So they're using whichever weapon they think is going to affect you the most. Again, men do that a lot too, right? It's not whether it's true or not. I think a lot of people need to get out of their own heads and realize that the truth of the insult is not actually what is the problem here. Because there are certain kinds of criticism that is constructive and that could actually help you. But the point is that people like this are not operating from good faith. The point is not to be constructive. The point is to be insulting. And so it's almost doesn't matter. Like, it's as meaningless as you're ugly. Or you won't get a guy until you lose 50 pounds. Okay. All right. Assuming that I lose the weight, it's not going to bring bigger problems for me because I'm going to attract the exact kind of shallow man that I'm trying to avoid. If the only reason why a man is after me is because I'm 50 pounds lighter than I was previously, is that really the kind of partner I should be attracting anyway? And pick-me's will tell you, yeah, because any man is better than no man. But that's the limited scarcity mindset that we don't operate with, right? I don't operate with that. So I can kind of clock when people are trying to insult me for the sake of. It's like, you're so lazy. And I'm like, you live in a rented house. And I'm saying this from South Asia, okay? I'm saying this from South Asia. I'm not trying to insult someone who rents their home. I rented my home for a very long time. Like, whenever I lived in the States, I was only on rent. I never owned a home abroad, for example. But the cheek of people who live in rented properties sitting and telling me, a person who bought my first home before I hit 30, that I'm lazy. And I'm like, if I was genuine, either I'm lazy, which you know what? The funny thing is, I'm okay to accept that I'm lazy because that means I'm the biggest genius alive. If I'm lazy and I was still able to rig the system in my favor, then I'm a fucking genius and people should be applauding me. Okay?
Hello. Bill Gates actually said that. Somebody was like,
I was just about to bring the Bill Gates thing.
tell us the Bill Gates anecdote.
I vaguely remember him saying that he only hires people who are lazy because they know the shortcuts and they use shortcuts to get the job done. And I mean, I think there's some truth in working smarter than working harder. Okay?
Yes. Capitalism has got you confused, people, because it's not just that they want you productive, they want you productive and exhausted, because then you're buying things that you would otherwise, if you had the energy, you would be doing them yourself and saving yourself money. Buying food from outside, like, having somebody come clean your house. All of these things you would do yourself if you had the energy.
And that's the other thing, right? Capitalism has corrupted your honor system into thinking that the more you work, the more rewarding you are of anything, right? It's like this false merit-based system. It's like, I deserve more because I put more work into it, right? And it's like women who think that marriage is a prize, for example. They're like, well, I deserve my husband's assets because I put way more work into maintaining this relationship. So why the hell does the mistress get everything? And it's like, well, because she worked smarter. Because she had the true measure of what your husband was. That's the unfortunate thing, right? Like, you're operating by an honor system that your husband does not believe in. That was your first mistake.
This is also, Diana, this is something where like we have elevated capitalism to a religion. It's a cult. People believe that if you somehow just like, if you pray to the right gods, AKA get the right job at the right place, if you get the right degree, if you know the right people, all of this is like going to get you to the pearly gates of heaven, AKA like a fully funded retirement with your full health. Like, people are desperate to believe that that's the answer to actually like having a life of ease and of security. And it's actually the opposite, because corporations will not be taking care of you on your deathbed. Like, they are happy to raid your pensions if it can make, their venture fund guys, another $20,000. Like, there is no honor in these systems of capitalism. And be wary of the fool who believes there is. That's really what's been tough for me. Like, understanding that, just looking out for myself in the business world is going to make sure that I get what's mine, because nobody else is looking out for me, or to be fair, to be really honest.
Yeah. The professional capacity, nobody's looking out for you, but let's assume that nobody really is looking out for you, right? At the end of the day, even as a partner, it's your responsibility to make sure that the assets and stuff are in your name. Like, these are active conversations you should be having. People really shy away from talking about money, but this ties into our prioritizing rest thing. You're not really prioritizing rest if you're spending all your time working to make up for the fact that you don't have a supportive partner. You know what I mean? What do we mean by maximizing rest is to create like the avenues for which you can actually maximize the ability to rest. Just recently, I know somebody who got divorced, right? And they were entitled, obviously, to their partner's assets, but their partner put their new girlfriend as the CEO of their company. So now there's like a custody battle between wife and girlfriend. And he left all of his assets in his mother's name. Like, there's no battle between her and him. The battle is between her and all these other women in his life that he's managed to triangulate with her. And he's very cleverly managed to sidestep the entire issue. Because you have to also look at like the legalese of your country and like see what the laws are like, because there's many countries where the law is not favorable to women. In most countries, the logic is that like the one who's more financially vulnerable is the one who's entitled to more. But if he's done a bunch of shit to help prevent you getting his assets, like, putting his girlfriend in charge and like making sure that all of his assets are in his mother's name, then he doesn't have any assets to disclose for you when it's time to divorce.
Like, let's be real here. They can say one thing and the law says, and it's supposed to be there to protect the the underserved. But ultimately, money talks and money wins. And the best lawyer is going to get the best deal for their client. And that's just how it goes. And I think, again, this is part of sort of the naivete and the idealism that women are brainwashed into thinking the world abides by. Men know that's not how it works. They know because they've set it up to their own advantage, but they want you to think otherwise so that, again, they continue to have the advantage over us.
And that's the thing. I think people buy into the trad wife rationale because I don't really think that women want to be trad wives. I think they want to be like princess. They want to be aristocrats. That's what they want to be. They're not really interested in being like a traditional working mother. They don't want to work. It has very little to do with running the family because that's work. If it was about actually running the family, they would never want to be a trad wife because it's way more work sometimes.
Exactly.
You're on call 24/7. If it was about work at all, then being a trad wife is the last thing they'd want to be. I think it's that they want to be aristocrats and they're comparing their socioeconomic situation to someone who has way more money than them.
Holy shit. We got some real talk right here, ladies. Like, this is straight from the source. This is so true. I mean, and this is like the difference between the haves and the have-nots. You know, as somebody who works as like an executive assistant to high income, high net worth income families, I cannot get over like what these people pay me to do. It's like all the minutia of life that they just don't want to have to deal with. Returning something to Amazon, picking up dry cleaning, getting the car's oil change. Like, it's all of the things that, you know what, in the regular world, these are just things you have to do. But they want to come from this sort of aristocratic, this life of indolence mentality. And because they earn so much, they're like, well, this is why I work to earn this much so that I never have to dirty my hands again.
Again, I don't think that they're involved in the financial legality of their contracts. Like in general, I think a lot of people don't want to admit that marriage is a contract. It's a legal business contract at the very core of like what the institution is about. And I think a lot of women are thinking, well, this is a meritocracy. I have won the title of wife, and that entitles me to some assets. And again, in certain circumstances, it does. If you're a non-working person and you're relying and dependent on this person, which we never advocate for in FDS anyway. But if you were this person who is, dependent on your spouse and stuff, when he divorces you, hoping that he hasn't managed to squirrel away and hide money, you're entitled to, 50% of his assets or whatever, right? But like, if you look at the situation that I just mentioned, like this person automatically assumed that because they were married to this person, they were entitled to the assets. And yes, they were, except that he very cleverly made sure none of the assets were in his name. And so they weren't his assets, they were somebody else's assets.
Oh my God, it's so diabolical. But they all do that. If they have money, you could damn well be sure that they have an estate attorney, that they have like all these attorneys that they've consulted with who have got everything wrapped up tight. Because damn sure they don't care what the law says. They're going to make sure they can do what they can as somebody who has more power and money. They're going to take advantage and they're going to win.
Yep. And I really encourage women in general to like go over the contracts on your own and to make sure that, it doesn't matter if you feel like your partner is not like a super high net worth individual and you guys are just, ordinary, average, middle class people. I don't know. Whatever the circumstances are, like, you never know who's going to blow up. You never know whose business is going to run like a huge profit. Maybe it's yours, right? You protect your assets. I think it's a good idea to like have this discussion with your partner. That's the thing. I think a lot of women don't want to talk about money because it's icky. And because we've been like, we've been shamed into being considered gold diggers. And so like nobody wants to look like a gold digger. But like, I honestly encourage women to embrace their inner villain and be a gold digger. Because I remember there was this really stupid woman once who was like, oh, I always tell men that I'm a lesbian so that they leave me alone. And I was like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Like, I couldn't even stop my mouth from saying that. I was just like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Because if you know anything about men and how much pornography they watch, they're fantasizing about lesbians all the time. That's not like a deterrent. Like, they're going to want you more, right? If you really want to chase a man away, tell him you're a gold digger. Tell him you don't have any relationships with men without money. And ask him to deposit money into your account for the first date. Watch how quickly he runs away. I've never had to reject a man because I just go straight into that mode. I'm a straight up gold digger. I own it. I'm a gold digger. I'm a platinum digger at this point. It's insulting to say I want gold. Okay? I want the creme de la creme. I'm a diamond digger. I'm a gold digger. I'm a platinum digger. I'm an asset digger, a land digger, whatever you want to call me. I'm a digger of all sorts.
Yes, because you've learned, I mean, honestly, like we're both joking and we're not joking. Because what was I just hearing? YV Edit, Lisa was talking about this. She's like, and we've talked about this before. It's not that we necessarily want rich men. We want generous men. A man who comes in asking for 50-50 on the first date is the stingiest, greediest, most grasping individual you will ever meet. And is that the energy you want in your life? Because like we all know that we bring so much we're the table plus everything that's on the table. And it's like, these men know it too, but they don't want you to know that they know it.
And also, men never fear asking for what they want. Like, if a man wants to have sex with you or he wants to, like, grope your tits or whatever, he's never shy about that. He's like, oh, could I touch them? Like, he's never shy. Men are never shy about what they want. I don't believe in the concept of a shy man. I believe in a concept of a lazy one.
Oh.
Men are definitely lazy, right? Like, the thing is about shy is that women are very eager to take the title of shy and make it mean something more than what it is. It's like, oh, he's just so shy and introverted, you know? He's like Darcy from Pride and Prejudice. He just like withdrawn. He's aloof. But, you know, and it's like, no, he's none of those things. He just lacks social skills. And he's like one of those stray dogs that if you get too close, he's going to bite you. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, right? But no, for real.
like, I don't want to spend my whole life socializing a stray man. You know what I mean? Like, why is it my job to tell you, hey, you know what? You like that girl? Maybe you should go out and, you know, maybe you should go up to her and ask her out. Like, I can't make you overcome your own fears. You know what I mean? I have fears of my own to work on. It can't be like down to every woman to socialize the men around them and be like, don't be so scared. Like, what is the worst that's going to happen to you? Like, she's going to say no and you'll be like, okay, that sucks. It stings a bit. You'll move on. Like, she's not going to take a knife and be like, how dare you ask me out, slash, you know? So I always think that their fears are a little bit stupid because it's like, yes, everybody fears rejection, but if you've been rejected enough, it's just, you know, water off a duck's back. It's not that important.
Yeah. And also, I think that's part of being an adult is like learning how to deal with rejection and continue on, like to cultivate resilience. That is part of what it means to become a mature and self-realized, fully individuated adult. Like, you know who fears rejection? Children.
Yeah, I mean, and you're an artist too, so I know that, like, you know, artists get rejected a lot, like to the point where it's almost meaningless. Now I face so much rejection, it just doesn't even register anymore. You know what I mean? Like,
It's true.
it's like, okay, on to the next. Like, I never register the rejection anymore because it's just, in the grand scheme of things, it just doesn't matter.
It's so true. I was actually going to introduce the artist angle because, like, when I tell you, like, how much I've been criticized and rejected, but in this case, it is constructive criticism because that's the world of the arts, right? Like, nothing is ever good enough. There's always things that can be improved. It's not a moral failure. It's simply what it means to be a participant in the arts world. And the rejection, too, is part and parcel of being in the arts. Like, there's always going to be somebody who's better or somebody who has a connection or their mom's on the PTA or. It's like fully much a Nepo baby world as well. But that's not the point. Like, if I want to be in this world, and I have to embrace the culture of it. That's simply what it is. And I think that's something that really gets me when I hear all these men being like, oh, I just hate rejection. It's like, what do you think it is to be a woman in the world? We're constantly rejected. The very essence of our being is rejected as being inferior to men, like from birth, you know? And so to hear this, like, oh, what if she says no? I have no sympathy. I have no empathy. It's like, just grow up, man.
Yep. And I mean, if you look at countries where female infanticide is like a huge deal, like female children are rejected from birth, literally. You know, some of those kids don't ever get to grow up ever. So, I mean, the thing is, I don't set too much stock by the title of marriage and being a wife by itself. I think it's a meaningless title without actually investigating what it means for you personally.
Right.
You have to do a lot of work to make sure that the union is going to give you something that's worthwhile. Because if it's just for the title of wife, it's the most meaningless title you could get. Because the amount of work that goes into being someone's wife is most of the time not worth it, unless you're getting something out of it. And for most women, they're getting nothing out of it. And they have to justify making that terrible decision with, oh, well, but I love my kids. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of my husband, but he gave me my kids, so it's fine. And it's like, well, you could have gotten those kids any other way and not had to deal with him. You know what I mean? So it's the kids are not a justification. They are the consolation prize.
Yeah. And like, honestly, with some of these kids out here these days, like, is it even that much of a prize? No. But I think this is so true. Like, part of learning and recognizing how to have rest that is advantageous to you is sort of like doing upfront work to ensure that sort of the downstream continues to be a situation that enables you to flourish and rest and repose. Right. So often, like, upfront, we're like, oh, my life's going to be so much better. Like, I'm going to have a partner who supports me. Being able to afford a mortgage and all these other things is so much easier on a 2-person income versus a 1-person income. All these things are true upfront. But for example, if you're going to be the one who's solely responsible for the upkeep of the house, you know how much work that is? Like, you know how much time and energy goes into actually upkeeping a house, let alone like the repairs and the maintenance. And a lot of these men are looking for somebody to like be fully responsible for them, not having to do any of that, right? They want to enjoy the experience of living in a home and having like equity, but not doing any of the work of a homeowner. And so this is what we mean by like being aware and being willing to negotiate and have the difficult conversations up front. Not necessarily the, are you going to like write me a check before we have a first date? Although I love that example, but truly, you know, looking at some of these things, oh, you want to move in together? Well, what does that entail? Like, oh, what is your idea about what marriage looks like? What a marriage timeline looks like? What having children looks like? Like, I can't imagine how all these people are like getting married and having kids and they've never had any of these conversations, Diana.
Yep. And I will say I've only ever done that with men I absolutely don't want to go on a date with. I'm just trying to be as unappealing as humanly possible. And being a gold digger is very unappealing to a lot of them. You know, I think a good man is probably not going to care, is probably going to find that amusing, actually.
Exactly. Yes.
But I mean, I've done the whole thing of like people have annoyed me and I've charged them unblocking fees. and like, and like, I've done all of those things. And I mean, like, honestly, because I have a very short temper with men. And like when I feel like I get irritated by them, I've set the bar even higher for them to have access to me, if at all. You know, most of the time, like these days, I have such little patience that they piss me off one time and they never hear from me again, you know? But back when I was still engaging them, I was like, well, what will allow me to feel less cheated? And that's what allowed me to feel less cheated. And I used to take that and be like, this is reparations for my time. I'm going to go and get ice cream. So you see, I prioritized my rest because I was like, okay, I'm going to go and buy myself some makeup from Sephora, or I'm going to go and get some ice cream or buy some shoes or whatever, you know, like his stupidity is paving the way for my rest. But like, that's the thing, like the rest is really important and the legwork has to be done up front. Like the contract that I filed recently, right? Like I was the one who drafted the contract, which the guy that I was working with was not aware of. I had like a lawyer who was working pro bono for me look over it. But I put in and inserted some clauses in there that were favorable to me. And I had her look over that and be like, does this look standard to you? Like, does this look okay? And she was like, yeah, it looks good. It looks like it favors you. And I was like, yeah, that's what I want. Right. And I sent it to him and I don't even think he really read it. Right. And he signs his contract and then he comes back to me and he flipped over the percentages, which made no sense because I did more work. So like, why the hell is he entitled to the majority share of the profits? Right. So I had to point it out to him and be like, no, sir, you're not entitled to the majority share because you didn't do the work. And also I should not have to like, based on our breakup, I said that like, you know, the cost of whatever I get would be after the deductions would be done for like marketing and things like that. So he had basically bungled the math and he had like basically flipped around who was owed what and like gave me the smaller cut, which made no sense because I was the one who devised the entire thing for him. And because I had checked the contracts myself, and because I had written those clauses myself, I knew them in and out. And so he had to stick to the contract because I was the one who wrote them. Like before you get married to someone, sit down with a lawyer and actually look over what you're agreeing to. Because it has to think about contingency. You have to have something for contingency of, well, what if one of us was to start a business? How will we split the profits of that? Never work for free for them, obviously, goes without saying if you're working for them. Like all of these things are in aid of your rest so that you're going to be doing way more work afterwards if you don't do the work beforehand. If you do the work before, you don't have to worry about working afterwards. Like I prioritize my rest, so I do all the work up front because I don't want to be in huge legal battles with other people. So I make sure I step into that.
I think it's so ironic that he's like, no, I should be making all this money. But that's the thing is I think men, without even realizing it, because that's what patriarchy has taught them, is that they are to benefit from the labor of women and that they are to receive the lion's share of the benefits. I mean, think about how many men are like, my woman should prepare me a plate first before even the children, right? Because I should be getting the choicest pieces of meat and I should be getting like, you know, the first go of food. Even when I have a 5-year-old who's like crying, they're like, I need to be served first. I think this is a little more extreme example, but I think but the one you've given us, I really do think men believe that in their heart of hearts and they don't know that they believe that. So that's just how they act by default. Like this man clearly thought, knowing that he was not the one doing the bulk of the work, he still thought he deserved the lion's share of the profits. Even if you get married, that is how they think. And one thing I've heard again and again from people who divorce is like, you don't know who you married until you divorce them. Like they can be one person when they're married to you, but divorce can introduce a very different element of their character that you've never had to deal with before because they're no longer able to take advantage.
Who you marry and who you divorce are two different people.
That's right. So again, this is all about like learning how to avoid sort of the downstream disadvantages and drawbacks of not doing your due diligence.
And you know what? There's some merit in using men's tactics against them. Like, I think I read this once in Why Men Love Bitches by Sherry Argov. I don't know if you've read that book, but I think she talks about, like, don't cook for men who are not your husbands, obviously. With a guy at his home and he's like, oh, why don't you cook me something? Like, offer to cook popcorn and set it on fire. And I was like, she's like, burn it so that he never asks you to do another task again. And I was like, oh, this is weaponized incompetence, except this time it's the woman doing it. And I was like, I'm in favor of this. I'm in favor of him making me do less, I'm in favor of being so bad at my job. He's like, woman.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. That's the thing, right? I've embraced being okay with being thought of as a villain as long as I don't have to do the work, because my time is more valuable than his time. It just is. I have less of it, My lifespan is actively being cut down by sitting and serving him. So by virtue of that, my life is worth a lot more than his is. Like, the time is worth more because I have less of it.
I really think that's such a true statement. That's such a poignant statement. And actually, like, I have to tell another family anecdote. My mom comes from a family of German farmers who all live into their 90s, not like 91, 92, but like 95, 97, 98. And they all live to their 90s fully healthy, in full control of their faculties, and fully mobile. Okay. Now, in the US, this is pretty unusual, right? But this is a family she descends from. Well, my father never took care of his health, was a hard partier in his youth, was an angry man his whole life. The last 10 years of his life, he had so many health issues that, like, he had papers being written on him by Mayo Clinic doctors. And she actually retired so that she could, like, take care of him full time and take him to all of these appointments and blah, 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 blah. And I don't think it would surprise anybody that, like, less than 10 years after he had died, she too had died at 79. And it was after a long battle with cancer as well. And she was such a good patient and, like, never complained and was, like, truly, like, the most angelic woman, even until the very end. But when I tell you he probably cut her life short by 15 to 20 good years, I'm not exaggerating. Women, this is a peek into what your life could be if you are not fucking impeccably careful and cautious and, like, doing everything to your utmost to secure your own advantage.
The funny thing is, I've seen this in reverse as well, where, like, especially in families where it's just men, like, it's one mom, like, and she just has sons and, like, a husband. She doesn't have any other woman picking up the slack. Like, I've seen many situations in which the mom has just, like, died because of being overworked and, like, overexploited, burnt out. And, like, not a single one of those men ever thought that it was, like, them pushing her that caused that. And they rushed to replace her instantly.
I'm sure. Well, they need a pack mule. They need a new slave.
Yeah.
Like, their life has been so choice and cushiony. Why wouldn't they want a new one? But how tragic is that? That's how many think.
We need to start using this logic of, like, men keep saying they're stronger and they have better muscle mass and, like, they have more stamina, and they need to put that stamina and strength to good use and pick up a dish or two, And I do that all the time. Like, with the family members of mine, like, I never clean dishes at, like, any male family member's house. My mom gets so annoyed at me because she's like, oh, you come off like a brat. And I'm like, I don't care if I'm a brat. That's the thing. Because I don't have to do it. And that's what I care about. I don't care if, like, after I leave, they're like, wow, she didn't even pick up a dish. I'm the guest in your house. Why the hell should I pick up the dish? Right? Like, when somebody comes to my home and I'm entertaining them and they're the guest and I'm the host, I don't make them do a damn thing. I don't know about whether this is cultural for like other cultures, but, like, in my culture, if you are a guest, like, we literally say the guest is God. And so we treat the guest like it's divine. Like, you don't have to do a damn thing if you are a guest in my house.
Okay, can I just interject? First of all, I love this for you. You are amazing. I always am learning from you, Diana. I just want to give you an example. In a pre-talk, I had actually been complaining to Diana about a recent trip I had made to visit a brother overseas, and I was really happy to go see him. And, like, it was a really lovely visit, except for a few things that I was complaining about to Diana that I'm not going to bring up here. But the example you just gave to me is I was there for 10 days and I did the dishes every meal. Like, the second to last day before I left, I cut my finger. And it was only then that I was permitted to not do dishes. Otherwise, I was doing dishes for 5 of us 2 to 3 times a day, every day for the entire trip that I was there. And I just kind of, because in my family, he's a brother, he's a man. I am there to serve and help. I'm not there to be a guest and relax and be, like, faded. Do you know what I mean? And so just hearing your example kind of brings it through to me again, like, no wonder I have all these weird hangups and, like, ideas around how I've got to be useful and the first to pick up the dish and the first to get the dishes washed. Like, that is exactly how I was brought up. And now with FDS, I have really been working, FDS and my therapist, Paula, have really been helping me work through and push beyond that. And that's why I'm better rested than ever. And like my skin looks amazing. Ladies, I glow.
You know what? I think there's a cultural element to it as well, because like when I was a kid, I went to a lot of parties where like the men and the women were like segregated, and the women were in the kitchen having discussions, and like they were cooking and they were helping out in the kitchen and they were bringing out all the food. And then when all the food was eaten, they were like gathering together and chit chatting and like doing the dishes together. And even as a child, I just thought that was so strange, you know, because I used to hang out with my dad because I was a kid, so I wasn't expected to do anything in the kitchen. But like some of the women who were raised like really conservative would make their children, like the female children, like clean up with them. And like I was like, you could not get me to do that. Even back then, like if my dad or my mom made me do that, like I honestly, my inner lazy would kick in. I'd be like, there's no way. I'm not in somebody else's house to do their dishes. Like that's crazy to me. You know, even as a child, I was like morally opposed, which is funny because I actually enjoy washing dishes. I have absolutely nothing wrong with like doing the dishes at all. Like I used to listen to FDS like when I would do tasks. So I would like listen, you know, I'd wash my dishes, I'd go bike riding. Like that was when I would listen to my podcast. So like I love listening to music or like watching a TV show and like listening to podcasts when I do the dishes. Like it's something that I don't mind doing. I just from a moral perspective of being a guest, I'm just like, why should I be doing it? Like I would never allow another guest in my house to do it. So why should I be doing it? You know what I mean?
I'm watching and I'm learning, Diana. I'm watching and I'm learning. Seriously, it's radical for me to understand this at a deeper level. And that's what FGS keeps helping me do. It keeps helping me sort of drill down deeper and deeper into some of these knee-jerk reactions, into some of these prejudices that I continue to hold, even unwittingly, right?
Yeah, I just want to draw like you should always strive to be a wonderful guest as well, right? Like you should obviously strive to be a guest that's a joy to have. Like people invite you to come back. Like people always want me back, you know?
Right.
And I remember like I was visiting a guy friend of mine. I'm the godmother of his kids. And he was like, oh, in the morning, you know, you can help out with the farm. And I was like, I love you, but that's not going to happen. I was like, there's no way in hell I'm getting up at like 6 a.m. to help you with your horses or whatever. I'm going to be asleep, okay?
Only a man would even think to say that.
I think he thought it would be enjoyable, you know, because it's like, oh, the novelty of like being on a farm. And I was like, nah, it's not, I don't know. Just no.
That was my brother too. He's like, you can get up early with the kids, like knowing that I love to sleep. He was like, but you can get up early with the kids. And I was like, okay, I will, because they're my niece and nephew and I hardly ever see them. But like, also, fuck you. It's so rude.
You know, sometimes you have to enforce civil disobedience, I've realized, because like this friend of mine is not like an aggressive male. He's not like a mean guy. You know, he's not like, oh, he's not going to think less of me because I refuse to do any labor. Like he's the same way. You know what I mean? In that like, this is a guest, like he just thought it would be a fun thing for me to do. But like, he's like the person who does all the household labor. Like his wife has a very important job. And so he's the one who's like cooking and cleaning and looking after the kids like 24/7. So he like makes everyone's meals. He makes everybody's lunch boxes. He's the one who's like fixing the menu and cleaning up the entire house. Like they're seasonal farmers. So he's like sitting and doing all the farm work all morning. And then during the day, he's making sure everybody gets their meals. And like, you know, when we were kids, he was always the one who was checking up on whether I was hydrated because he's always concerned about the fact that I don't drink any water. So he like, even now, he chases me around with bottles of water and he's like, this is still such a problem. Like, I can't believe that like you're still like this. Like, what's wrong with you? And like, that's the thing, right? I made it difficult for him. So now he's just used to looking after me. There's no concept of like, it's my job to do this. And I just don't. I'm like, I love you, but I won't. Like, I'll tell you right now that I'm on holiday. There's no fucking way I'm waking up at like 6 a.m. in the morning to go, I don't know, grab some sheep or something. Because, you know, I did that. I went to vet school. I did the whole 6 a.m., give the sheep manicures and chase after the goats and make sure the alpacas don't bite you. Like, I've done that. It's cute. It's adorable. It's not for me.
Oh, Diana.
I think a lot of people are just afraid of seeming mean and brutal. And it's like, yes, being a good guest can entail, you know, washing after a dish or two after yourself. Like, there's no dishes left in the sink and this is not like a dishwasher family. And you're drinking out of one cup, like, yeah, sure, wash that dish. Like, it's not for other people to wash. Like, that's fine, you know? But sitting and rearranging their wardrobe and cleaning their kitchen and like, no, there's a limit between being a good guest and like not making a spectacle of yourself and occupying too much space in somebody else's home versus you going above and beyond to be the surrogate, like, I mean, I don't know, the surrogate wife.
Yeah.
The spare maid of the home, you know? Even in Thanksgiving, like people talk about like how women will go and visit like their friends and like the guys are all sitting and drinking beers and watching TV and the women are like, oh, okay, well, how can I help? Why is it that we automatically assume this role of like, it's our job to help?
It's because we're brought up that way. Absolutely 100%. It's how we're conditioned. And I have to say too, you know, like this is something my therapist Paula would say to me too. She's like, oh, are you going home for a Christmas break? Are you going home to be Cinderella? Because my therapist, Paula, is a real one, right? Like,
Yeah.
she was like, I'm tired of trying to like get you to see like how misused you are, whether it was abused or misused, how much you're being exploited. Like, you're in a very rigorous grad school program. You need to rest on your break. And instead you go home and you come back even more exhausted. Like, this can't continue. And so I think what you just pointed to is like, we are so afraid of being perceived by others.
Yeah, and we're so afraid of being perceived as bossy too. Like, I'm a bossy little bitch. I delegate to men all the time. If I go to my friend's house, like, even if her husband is not the type who's ever like been told what to do, I'm like, hey, you're tall and big and strong, right? Why don't you set up all the dishes and put all the placemats and shit? Like, I always pamper them with their ego, right? I'm like, you're a big strong man. Why don't you get to it?
Get to it. This is really the heart of why so many women do have a hard time resting. We are so afraid of being perceived as stepping out of line, being lazy, being worthless, being selfish.
Being masculine.
There's no end of things that we are afraid of being perceived as. And ultimately, what it's leading to is lives that are compromised by health issues and lives that are literally cut short. And so I want you to think about that when you're so, so afraid, when you just can't let yourself lie down for a rest. Really start to dig deep and go into why you're hurting yourself and why you feel you aren't worthy of being cared for by the one and only person who's ever going to care for you like no one else, yourself.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people need to start thinking they deserve it, Like, start asking men to do shit, and if they don't, just leave them behind. I don't believe in this malicious compliance thing. Like, if I meet a hostile man who, like, if I ask him to do something that I think is relatively simple and he's like, well, I shouldn't have to do it because I'm a man, guess what? I'm never speaking to that guy ever again. I'm not procreating with him. I'm not marrying him. I'm not dating him. I'm not befriending him. And if that's my friend's husband, I'm side-eyeing her and being like, what the fuck? Like, why is it such a big deal, like such a matter of ego, that he can't pick up like a dish or can't do the laundry, If all of womankind were to die off tomorrow, what the fuck would the men do?
Die. Perish.
Yeah, they perish, right?
Ultimately, I think this is something that I keep coming back to as somebody who's like vehemently anti-capitalistic. I use my like ideology as just fuel for the fire of knowing that rest is a radical rejection of capitalism. Rest is a radical rejection of consumption. Rest is you restoring the planet back to its natural habitat and like back to its natural equilibrium. We are so far out of whack right now because productivity and workaholism has been like, raised to levels of Jesus level worship. And nobody rests when they need to. And I think the natural world, the planet as well, needs us to learn how to fucking chill, dude.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing. It's never going to be comfortable asking people to pull their weight. And you just have to learn how to be okay with being a villain. The thing is, if your husband or partner is surrounded by good people, if he was ever going to come at them with, you won't believe what my asshole wife asked me to do. She asked me to wash the dishes. Those men are going to look at him and be like, okay.
And?
Yeah. Like, you're a loser, dude. I mean, of course, I know those kinds of men are not in abundance, right? But like, you have to be with men who think that doing that kind of shit is absolutely normal. That it's not a gender thing. That's the only way. I think a lot of people think that like men need to be awarded for cooking and cleaning and picking up after themselves. And like a lot of men will be there asking you to celebrate them too and being like, I'm such a great guy, right? Like, I do all of these things. I don't know why I can't find a good woman. And it's like, because this is showboating. This isn't real, right? This is a facade. Like, this is a mask you're putting on because you think it's going to get good reviews. And it's not who you really are. Like, when I look at that friend of mine, the dad who was like, why don't you wake up in the morning and do the farm work? I was like, ha, adorable. But never in his life has he expected the women in his life to do that kind of work. He picks it up and he does it. I don't think his wife has ever had to tell him the dishes need to be done. You need to do this. You need to do that. He's very proactive. He's very proactive about what needs to be done in the house, accepts that it's his role. And it's the role that he and his wife have agreed upon. They're like, she brings some of the money.
It's the role of being human. To be human is to have a never-ending list of things you have to do every day in order to maintain your human body. It's not something that's exceptional. It is mundane. And if he feels like it's an exceptional thing that needs to be like, feted and celebrated and cosseted on, ladies, run the other way. And I think, Diana, with that, we've basically covered everything we wanted to. Is there anything else we've missed?
No, I think we've covered most of it, if not all. But yeah, I mean, I think it's better to partner with people who realize that doing tasks is not gendered and you do it because you need to be doing it. Like, you need to have the dishes washed because you need clean dishes. You need to have the laundry done because you need clean clothes. Somebody who thinks that, like, I'm not going to do this because this is a man's role and this is a woman's role. Okay, if it's a woman's role to be in the kitchen, I'm going to need you to start putting a certain amount of money into my bank account every month.
Correct.
Start being a provider. You want to have a traditional marriage? I'm going to need you to start, like, you know what? Let's take one note from the Japanese woman. In Japan, apparently, the men deposit their entire bank account into the wife's account. And it's her responsibility to basically be the accountant of the house and make sure that, like, all the bills and everything are paid. And then she gives him an allowance for him to go and have fun with. And I think we should all start doing that, because if they want traditional gender roles and they want me to, like, manage the house and look after it and do all this shit, then if I'm getting this kind of responsibility, then I'm going to need your entire paycheck. Watch how quickly he's going to be like, no, let's just be modern.
Point blank, period. Exactly right.
I'm telling you, the second you want men to start behaving, you start bringing up money. Just start bringing up money.
So rest is vital and fundamental, and whatever he wants you to do things, start charging him. The end, point blank, period. Diana, thank you as ever for a wonderfully enlightening and scintillating conversation. And to our listeners, we're so happy to hear from you. We want to hear more. We want to hear listeners' stories. We've got people coming up for interviews in the next couple months that we're very excited to host, so stay tuned for that.
Exactly. And as usual, email your stories at contact@thefemaledatingstrategy.com. And also remember, our bonus episodes, they come out every week.
Get it. Until next week.
Die mad, scroats.
Die mad. See you later.
See you later. Bye.